Hello and welcome to Updog Sports Talk. If you are finding us here for the first time, here at Updog Sports Talk, we deliver fan focused coverage that spotlights the teams, the players, and the communities that are often overlooked by mainstream sports media. We do this because your team has a story worth telling. And today, that story takes us to Pac-12 After Dark. Not just After Dark, but this conference in general is finally back in a more true form with a full slate of games and a lot of very fun teams that we'll get into here. This conference is one of our favorites. We absolutely love watching these teams every single year, and very excited to kind of dive in and see how each of them looks. So we'll go team by team, going through what their biggest strength looks like, what are some potential concerns for this year, and then what does success look like for that team. So we'll go through all of those, and then at the end, I'll go through who is a potential sleeper to watch for, and then also conference championship pick. So tune in and yeah, let's go right with Boise State here. The Broncos are really one of the big names of the conference. They are pretty much the presumptive favorite at this point. And there's some good reasons for that. They have a really powerful running game. Last year they had the deal of replacing Ashton Genty, who was just a legendary player. And you can't replace that guy with one player. So Boise State replaced him with two excellent running backs. Dylan Riley and Sire Gaines were both excellent and really just kind of wear down defenses because both guys are elite. Like, they could start at bigger programs, but they are sticking with Boise State and running behind a pretty good offensive line. Like, this is a team that's going to be, if they can run you over, good luck. There's nothing you could do about it. They got a defensive line that's also really good. This group is going to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks. I think for Boise State, the big question is going to be, can they get more out of the passing game? I think if teams were able to withstand the run game enough, like Boise State could run the ball at anyone, but if teams are able to withstand the run game last year and at least hold it enough to where Boise State eventually makes a mistake, like a false start or some sort of penalty that brings them back and forces them to pass the ball, things really fell like dominoes last year for the Broncos. I mean, when they lost pretty spectacularly. And part of that is because the passing game just really couldn't hold its weight. Maddox Madsen dealt with some injuries last year, so that did not help. But he needs to be at least more accurate. We're not asking him to go out there and be Kellen Moore, but we need to at least see him be a very solid, consistent quarterback that can take care of this offense. And of course, he needs some help too. He needs the receivers to step up a little bit. So that's what we need to see from Boise State if we're going to see this team return to the college football playoff, which that is what success looks like for the Broncos this year. There is nothing less than that. This is a program with very, very high standards. It has competed at a championship level for such a long time now. We're talking 2 decades plus at this point. So every single year, a conference championship is the expectation. And now with how the playoff is set up, making the college football playoff is now part of that expectation. Anything short of that is a disappointment for Broncos fans. Not that winning 9 games is bad, but it's just this is a program that feels like every year they don't make the playoff feels like kind of a waste a little bit. And of course, if they don't win the Pac-12 championship, I think that would be kind of disappointing too, because Spencer Danielson's won more conference championships than he has full seasons coached at this point. He won 3 conference championships, and he's only coached 2 full seasons. He won one as an interim on his first season with Boise State. So this is definitely an excellent program, and surely one of the ones that you have to consider. So that gets us to our next team here, the Colorado State Rams. And last year did not go well. They're beginning a new era under Jim Mora Jr. And really, I cannot imagine making a better hire. Like, Colorado State absolutely nailed this hire with Jim Mora Jr. he brings instant credibility to this team. This is a program that has really just struggled for a long time, and there's no good reason for it. They have significant investment. This is actually the biggest budget in the Pac-12, and really just outside of the Power Four conferences, like one of the biggest budget there. So Colorado State has a lot of money at their disposal. They they just have not made the right moves until this point here to be successful. And now you've got a coach who is going to instantly get things going. The run game and their defense will be significantly improved. Like, both areas were a huge problem for Colorado State last year. I'm expecting those to flip the strengths this year. So that is going to be one thing to watch. I think overall, yeah, there's still some risk with such a huge portal overhaul, and you've got a lot to overcome it. They're going 2-10 last year, and being in a conference that is very deep. There are no there in conference play. There are no obvious victories. That is going to be the one big challenge for Colorado State. I think a lot of people have this team pegged into last place. And obviously, I'm not going to sit here and pick Colorado State for the conference championship. So I'll go ahead and say that I think pegging this team in last place is a mistake. I think they're going to be a lot better than that. They'll be right in the mix, I think. But in terms of what success looks like, I mean, really anything positive is a good sign. Just kind of, I'd say if they can improve to 4 wins, that still feels successful. But I really feel like with a coach like Joe Mora Jr., like, this team could end up challenging for a bowl game right in year 1. So this is definitely a team to watch for. They're going to be better than the experts think, I think. So we'll go to Fresno State, the Bulldogs. This team led by Matt Entz. He's a former North Dakota State coach. And when you think about North Dakota State, and now when you think about Fresno State, it's going to be a tough, physical team. They have a defense that is relentless. They're going to get after teams, and they're going to try to push you around. The offense is going to do the same thing. They got an elite running back duo in Donaldson and Luke, who are just going to they both could run for 1,000 yards this year. They are that good. So that is going to be interesting to watch. And I know the defense loses a few key pieces, but that defense is not going to fall off. They're going to be very, very good again. And really, the one area where Fresno State needs to improve in order to be a top contender in this conference, they must find something in the passing game. Last year, they trotted different guys out, just found no success moving the ball forward in the pass game. And there's no reason they can't. Like, they have some really good receivers led by Josiah Freeman. They just need to improve at the quarterback position. So they're going to hope Martin, the transfer, likely ends up stepping up and taking that role. He could end up being the guy for them, but that will definitely be the big area that really shapes what Fresno State's season looks like. In terms of what success looks like, I think at least being in that race at the top of the Pac-12 looks good for them. Win 8 or 9 games and show you're a top contender. I think that would be very encouraging for Fresno State fans and show that they're going to be a serious force in this conference for years to come. So that's going to be the big key for them. And I think it's a team that could possibly get there. Now we go to Oregon State. The Beavers they had a few lost years here, but now they're kind of trying to work their way back up. New head coach Jamarcus Shepard is bringing a lot of excitement and enthusiasm to the program. That's what they need. They got Braden Atkinson, who was a star at Mercer last year. He's coming in at quarterback. He'll compete with Malik Murphy, who's somehow still here for the quarterback job. I suspect that Atkinson will win that and become a nice key piece for this offense. And if he's as successful as I think he is, he's got a loaded group of receivers to throw to. I mean, Shepard, he was a receiver coach. This is his background. And he brought in a lot of talented guys who are going to be an instant impact to this offense. So I think without a doubt, you can expect Oregon State to have a really good pass game. And really the big key for them is going to be that inexperience up front, both offensively and defensively. Can they find the right pieces up there to make their way forward and compete with some of the best in the league? That is going to be the big challenge for Oregon State. So they must figure that out. But in terms of what success looks like, this is another team that I think people have kind of just presumptively pegged towards the bottom, but I don't think they realize some of the pieces they brought in. I feel like Oregon State has gone very under the radar this season, this offseason. But they're not going to be an easy win for anybody. They're going to compete. And I think making a bowl game would be a nice positive step in at least year one. You've got a tough schedule ahead of you, a really tough schedule, like not just the conference schedule, but also the non-conference schedule is just loaded with tough games. So need to be able to, I'd say making a bowl game, it definitely would be a very cool way to start out this era. Even if they don't make a bowl game, I'm not too concerned, but I think Beaver fans want to see their team in a bowl. So that gets us to San Diego State, the Aztecs. They are under Sean Lewis. They made a huge step forward last year. Now they look to maintain that. One thing that's going to help them maintain that is, practically the whole offense returns. And I feel like a lot of people have kind of ignored that a little bit. From what I've seen in other previews, they say, oh, well, they're returning all the pieces in the offense, but the offense wasn't good last year. Well, here's the thing. They run this veer and shoot offense that, spreads the field out. Usually it's pretty quarterback friendly, but the main thing is like this offense takes until really the second year to get going. So, while this is Sean Lewis's third year here, most of these pieces just came here last year. And now all of them are back. All of them have another year working in this offense. This offense could seriously take off this year. And I think a lot of people have written it off, and I think that's a foolish idea. Denegal will take a step forward at quarterback. They have a receiver in Napier that they can rely on, and several other receivers who are back. And of course, the engine of the offense are the running backs, which you got Lucky Sutton and Christian Washington, one of the better duos in this conference and really in college football in general. So you've got a really promising offense here. So I'm expecting it to take off. But in terms of weakness or what kind of concerns they may have, I'm not really too concerned, but I think this defense did lose a lot of key pieces. You have some defensive linemen that graduate. Trey White transferred to Texas Tech. You lost Chris Johnson, a first-round pick to the NFL. So can the defense remain at that elite level? They had I think at least 3 shutout victories last year. This was a defense that punished teams. And now, can that defense remain elite with all those losses? That's going to be one question. And of course, also, let's see if this team can be a little better at taking the show on the road a little bit this year. The next team here, we go to the Texas State Bobcats. Definitely, a lot of these teams in this conference are very familiar with each other with the Pac-12 Mountain West arrangement that kind of went on. Texas State is really the true newcomer here. They're completely new in this mix and really don't have a lot of history playing any of these teams. That's going to be a lot of fun to see. And Texas State, for Pac-12 fans that are trying to get to know them, the quarterback receiver duo is what to know about this squad. Quarterback Brad Jackson, this is the first time that G.J. Kinney has had a returning quarterback. So I think that's really big. And Brad Jackson was not a transfer that they brought in. Previously, this was like kind of the transfer rehab center where transfers come in, they have a great year, and then they go elsewhere. Brad Jackson was recruited out of high school to this program. He's been in the system and proved to be just so efficient last year. And then you got a receiver in Bo Sparks, who's one of the best in the country. Yeah, I believe this is a top 10 QB wide receiver duo in college football. They are going to be elite. And you got some really good receivers around them as well. But I think the big question for Texas State, like you have this explosive offense, but the biggest question is can the Bobcats finally get stops on defense? Last year they let so many games slip away because the offensive line, I mean, the offensive line this year kind of loses some pieces, but they could not quite close out games because they didn't want to be as aggressive late in games. They had to kind of run the ball a little bit more. But the problem was really like it was just on the offense to keep scoring, keep scoring, keep scoring. They even stalled out a little bit. Opposing teams came back and beat them because the defense just could not get stops. So this year that must get better. That really I think they could make an impact in this conference right away and be instantly a team that people have to worry about. But ultimately, it's just going to come down to what this defense looks like. They have to get stops. Otherwise, some of the run heavy teams in this conference are going to give Texas State a tough time. They're going to be able to keep this Bobcat offense off the field. So that's going to be the big key there. I think for Texas State, success looks like at least getting to a bowl game, finishing with a winning record, and maybe even getting up to like 8 or 9 wins would be great. I think it would show. I San Marcos would be absolutely popping if they start winning 8 or 9 games because already like joining the Pac-12 has generated even more excitement for this program. It is one of the quickest growing programs in college sports right now. So, continuing a positive trajectory will keep that going for them. Now for Utah State, they enter year 2 under Bronco Mendenhall. He kind of brought some instant improvement for them, and now we this is a really good coach. He knows how to win, and he's got a quarterback in McKay Hillstead, who's actually coming back to Utah State. He was previously with the program, actually threw for a ridiculous amount of yards against the Kurt Signetti coach JMU team few years back. I actually think I mentioned in my preview an unofficial stat. I'm pretty sure he's thrown for more yards against the Signetti defense than any other quarterback in the game. But anyways, that's shown that Hillstead can sling it, and this offensive scheme is going to put up points. So I feel good about where they stand. But of course, at the same time, there are some areas this offense needs to get better at. The O-line gave up 42 sacks last year. That is way too many. And especially if you've been in this preview this whole time, you know that I mentioned quite a few strong defensive lines in this conference. So that is protecting Hillstead is going to be a huge key for this team. And the offense just simply has to get better at third down. 28% last year. That's how many they converted. That just is not going to work, especially in such a competitive league. So they have to get better at that. And of course, I think the defense has some really good parts in it, but the unit as a whole needs to play a little bit better and give up less points. So that'll be kind of the other area to watch for Utah State. But in terms of what success looks like, this is going to be a pretty tough upgrade in talent. So they are going to have to get used to battling week in and week out. They have some really tough non-conference games as well. So I think getting to a bowl game would represent a really positive season for Utah State and show that they're going to be a serious team in this league. They're not going to be a team that the teams can just beat up on. And I think it would show that eventually Bronco Mendenhall is going to have this program as a contender. Right now, it's kind of in the building stage a little bit, but he'll be able to get it up to that level. So a bowl game definitely will be the huge key there. Trying to win your home games is going to be key. So that's kind of what I see for Utah State. And then we get to our last team here, but definitely not least, Washington State. The Cougars have been very quietly pretty steady, actually, since this all went on. I mean, their first year as practically an independent, they they were in the top 25 and then kind of slipped late in the year. Last year was a bit more of a struggle, but they quietly were pretty decent. Like they had some really difficult road games. Had to go to Ole Miss and Virginia back to back weeks. Nearly won both of those games. But entering this year, new head coach under Kirby Moore. I think you're going to see Kirby Moore kind of release this offense a little bit more. And I say release because seeing how the offense looked most of the season last year and then seeing it in the bowl game was significantly different. Like the offense just looked more loose, had a better flow to it, and the results on the field showed it. Like they looked really impressive offensively. And it was kind of like, where was this all year? And I think Kirby Moore is going to have the offense looking more like the bowl game and not how it looked in the regular season. You got a defense that's going to be very, very good. And I don't think there's enough being said about the defensive front in general, defensive line and linebackers. Like, this is going to be an area where Washington State is going to be really, really good. And I would like to see kind of more credit given to them for that. I don't know why people are overlooking it, but get ready because this is going to be a front that's going to pressure everyone they play. So I mean, and they do have a tough non-conference schedule. They open with Washington. They play at Kansas State, which Kansas State's best offensive lineman just went down for a season-ending injury. So that gives Washington State the opportunity there as well. And then they host Arizona. So like, you got a tough non-conference schedule. So that is going to be one of the main keys. One of the big concerns is like, how do you look at these first three games? You could be anywhere from, I mean, the margin is so slim. Like they play well. They could be 2-1 now that stretch and looking really good. If they even slip a little bit or have any sort of kinks to kind of work out a little bit, which that's kind of something that you're going to run into with your third coaching staff in 3 years. But if that becomes an issue and they're not quite in sync, they're looking at an 0-3 start. So how do you gain momentum from that point is going to be a key, and there really isn't a break in the schedule to pull that together afterwards either. So that's going to be the other big key. But in terms of expectations and what success looks like, I think success is winning at least 8 games, being right towards the top of the conference. I mean, this is, Washington State is one of the founding members of this conference. They're entering this year with, yes, they have another coaching staff, but this is a program that has maintained success the last few years, despite everything going on. So now that things are solidifying themselves a little bit and more settled, this feels like their conference, and they probably take a lot of pride in trying to win it. So I think being right at the top of the conference race, even winning the conference, I think is what more expectations look like for Washington State this year. So that brings us to how does this conference shake out a little bit? So I think my sleeper team is going to be Colorado State. Again, everyone kind of assumes that they're going to be at the bottom of the conference. I'm not so convinced. I think Jim Mora Jr. is going to have this team competitive right away. And no, this is not going to be like the sleeper team, like, oh, they could win the conference out of nowhere. No, they probably won't do that, but they're going to be a really, really good team this year. So I think they take a huge step forward. And then I'm going to go a little bit bold here with my conference championship pick. I'm going to have San Diego State in the conference championship game. But ultimately, I mean, looking at Danielson's track record, I cannot pick against Boise State here. I got Boise State over San Diego State for the Pac-12 title, but it is going to be an interesting race all year. This is going to be a conference. It's going to be fun to watch every single week. I mean, when you see these games are all going to be available, by the way. Like if you have YouTube TV, you're going to be able to see them anywhere. And I really other basic packages as well. Like, there's some games on USA Network and the CW and all that. Figure out where those channels are now, because every single game that's going to be played in this conference is going to be an absolute blast. So I know my goal this year is to watch every single one of these games because I'm going to really enjoy seeing these teams. May not be able to do that because I'll probably be in attendance at other games, and when I attend a game, it's kind of hard to make it, kind of hard to watch it. But I really, this is a conference that you're going to want to watch this year. And of course, there's lots of opportunities. You got those late night after dark games and stuff like that. But yeah, this is going to be a very, very cool conference. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, or if you're listening to this, leave a review on Apple or Spotify, and really just help us continue to grow and provide coverage that your teams deserve. Again, we absolutely love talking about the Pac-12 and every single team in this conference we enjoy, but we want to continue to be able to provide that kind of coverage to you. So thank you for tuning in, and have a good one.